Insomniacs. I am getting ready for bed, and tomorrow I have getting on my prescriptions for the night. Tomorrow I've got obligations, and uh, you know, obviously if there's breaking news, I will try to do a stream. But if there's not, you're not going to hear or see from me. I do see another fellow insomniac is up on the screen, and there's something I want to show you guys. But I wanted to give you a Massachusetts update. This is probably going to be one of those times where there's like updates every day, which is good. Well, it can be good. So far, it's good. Despite the best efforts of people, some of which will remain unnamed, most of which, actually, maybe even all of which, will remain unnamed, but they know who they are, that I'm extraordinarily disappointed in, that some haven't, this is a personal disappointment. It isn't anything to be imputed to the people in Massachusetts. This is my channel. It's more my personal views. They know who they are. That, would say they're not taking a side while taking a side. Solomon's baby is not justice. If you don't know what I mean, Christians generally do. So would, Jewish people, or just scholars of religion, or people just interested in religious texts. Whether you believe it's a true story or not doesn't matter. The lesson is like all the parables we learn as children. I use this a lot. Those of you who are longtime listeners of mine will know I do. By the way, the almost 4-hour bylaws video is back up. There was an issue with the last video that needed to be fixed. No content was deleted. Some cropping needed to be done to prevent some private information that people could have used maliciously. Nothing like, nothing scandalous. Just, somebody alerted me to something. I said, I don't think that's a big deal, but let's be safe. So there's just a little cropping done. No content was changed. The only thing I deleted was the opening segment of the countdown, because you don't need that when it's a re-upload. I forgot where I was again. Very tired, very stressful, very emotional, up and down with this whole thing. This takes a toll on people, these things. So the credentials committee met today. The chair of the credentials committee moved to reconsider the decision to seat the rightful delegates, which is, again, the non-purgers. That motion to reconsider failed. So things stand as they were, which is how they should be. Not going to judge anyone's motives for bringing the motion to reconsider. There's a lot of discussions that go on that I'm not privy to. And honestly, I feel really bad for the credentials committee right now, because here's the dirty secret in the party. It's not so much of a secret right now. The CRM is not working properly. It should not have been used for credentials. I don't believe, though someone can correct me, that was a decision of the credentials committee. I think that was a decision made for them. And it should not have been used for the bylaws survey, because so many people haven't gotten this. Very few people know the fix. I posted it on my page. I'll try to do a short video on the fix, but the fix is kludgy. And allegedly, the fix is only needed if you unsubscribe from national emails. And you won't get it at all if your state chair hasn't entered you into the database. However, people like my husband and others are subscribed to national emails. They're entered in the database, and they still didn't get it. There's multiple people like that. The CRM was not ready for this. Use the data for whatever, but just know it's bad data, and you created a lot of resentment from people not being able to get the survey. Not the right, nothing malicious, but in retrospect, not a good decision. It's not good. We're not going to belabor that point. No crying over spilt milk, but just know that the CRM is not ready for these sorts of things. So can we fix it, please? I believe in the CRM. You are, not you. These failed uses are prejudicing people against something that I think is absolutely necessary in this party. I'm a huge believer in the CRM. So please, can we stop? There was a perfectly serviceable but ugly program that had been used for years to credential people. Why aren't we using that? Because it's ugly? Because it looks like, AOL, it doesn't matter. It worked. I'd rather something ugly that works. So I'm not going to bust credential committee hump because I feel bad for them. I'm going to be doing I know I said we're going to talk about Massachusetts, but while I'm here, I'm telling you other stuff like I do. I'm going to be doing some more bylaws review updates because, again, you guys saw my first reaction. You're allowed to edit your survey. I may edit some of my answers. None of them are going to go from, good morning, Charles. None of them are going to go from do not support to support. But I may add more reasons I don't support. I may soften some things. I may add other things because a lot of people have given me some really good feedback. But one thing I'm not going to do is, except for that one time I already offered one amendment in there, I'm not putting amendments in there. I will explain why in another show. This committee's been meeting for what? Over a year? We shouldn't have proposals that need to have amendments suggested by members. And in case, because some of these bylaws proposals, I have to tell you, are making me very cautious. And if my cautiousness is warranted, I don't want to reveal my strategy. My cautiousness may not be warranted, in which case, you'll see the amendments on the floor. But I'm not going to, I have lots of good reasons not to trust some people. I don't think very many people can blame me, so I'm not giving them my strategy. I'll tell them my opinion, whether I like it, don't like it, but I'm not going to tell them how to cure if I don't like it. They had plenty of time to, they didn't consult with the party parliamentarian. The party parliamentarian should be at almost every bylaws committee meeting. I invited him to platform committee meetings just to help with procedure, but bylaws, we have a party parliamentarian and we don't. No. Now to Massachusetts. So what happened? This is like days of our lives, except for not actors. Real people are being impacted here. Well, the purgers waved a white flag, but not really. They don't think they waved a white flag. That isn't the way they're going to present it, but that's what it is. So the purgers today, and there's all kinds of interesting wrinkles in this. The purgers today had an alleged state committee meeting. I say alleged because they are not llama. They're LARPing as llama. They're playing board the way little girls play house. But, well, little boys sure play house too. Like children play house. But they're not the legitimate board. They could pass a motion to give each, they could pass a motion on anything they want. It doesn't matter. They're not llama. You could pass a motion that I don't know, that you're going to give $1 million to such and such candidate, that you're not legitimate. So it doesn't matter what you post, move. You're not the party. It would be like LPCO's last board. Well, there's a lot of crossover. Let's go back 2 boards ago, deciding to start meeting again and going, well, I move, all this stuff for LPCO. They're not LPCO. That's the fundamental thing that they don't seem to have come to grips with, but they're getting there. So what they did while LARPing as llama is they decided to, somewhere the motion was posted. I haven't seen the exact language, and it's been related to me 2 different ways, but their intent is clear. Tara at the credentialing committee meeting said they rescinded all of the expulsions, which is what the 47 have been asking for months. It's too late. If the motion actually was a motion to rescind, you can't rescind an expulsion. You can't rescind an action that is already completed. It's the term parliamentarians like to use is you cannot unring the bell. Now, they could reinstate them. And to some people, that's a technicality. But other people have told me it was a motion to reinstate. I know it was posted somewhere. I've been busy. If it was a motion to reinstate, that's different. Probably was a mass motion to whatever. I don't care because they're not a real board. So I don't really care what they called it. But if they were a real board and they did it as a rescission, you can't rescind expulsions. Anyway. So they did that and presented that to the credentials committee in an argument to try to keep delegate seats. You have no delegate seats. I don't know when you're going to come to grips with this. The legitimacy of, we'll call them Llama 1, which was previously chaired by Ashley Shade, so Llama 1. The legitimacy of your convention on April 23rd depends on multiple factors. I think there's multiple factors, it's detailed in the brief, upon which if any of them are true, you are not valid. And I think all of them are true. But I'm going to deal with the most important one right now that they tried to undo tonight, and that has to do with the expulsion. Keith, they have no authority to revote on, we're going to get to that. No, they're not, by the way, but they couldn't anyway. So if the expulsions were wrong, which they are conceding they are, even if that's not the words they're using, they're conceding they're wrong. They're waving the white flag. Then the special convention, they were in continuing breach of the bylaws for not calling the special convention. And in continuing breach of the bylaws for the expulsions. Any actions taken under that state, for the most part, are invalid. Not all parliamentarians agree that all actions are invalid, so I'm only going to talk about the ones upon which nearly everyone will agree. But the special convention should have been called, and because the board refused their duty, the 2 state committee members called the convention. This is all detailed out in the appeal on how this happened, and a new board was elected. I believe that board was legitimately elected. And then they called a convention for April 24th, at which they elected delegates and the new board for the year. They were like an interim board. These facts are, people might quibble about some things, are indisputable. Well, earlier, Steve Dasbach, who's a chair candidate, I don't expect chair candidates not to have opinions. I do expect chair candidates, just like the current party chair, to try to maintain neutrality and stay out of it. Even if they have their own private opinions, they're going to. You can't stop someone from having an opinion, but you may disagree and find no problem with this. This is up to you. But at least you know he's made his opinion public. He wrote the Credentials Committee and others and said, even if the special member convention was valid, I should probably read his exact email. It doesn't matter because I could have it like slightly off. I'm getting the basic contours right. I don't want to bore you with me looking up emails and all that. That the convention on April 23rd, which was Llama 1's convention, was still valid because the Llama 2 board never officially canceled it, and it was already noticed to the members. Clever argument, Steve, but it's garbage. Let me explain why. Let me explain why. If the expulsions were invalid, done wrong, not cause, as Alicia Matson very clearly laid out, that despite whatever smokescreen they keep putting up, the members were expelled for exercising their rights under their own constitution. That is not a valid cause. And cause is pretty damn broad, as I've learned. That's not a valid cause. So the expulsions were invalid. The number is disputed. 47 is what I consistently hear from the side who I'm advocating for. 46 seems to be the number I keep hearing from Llama 1. All of a sudden today, the number 45 came up from Tara. I think that number, though, isn't the number of initially expelled. She, on her own, reinstated one of them and never asked them if they wanted to be reinstated. But whatever. So that's how the number kind of flips between 44, 45, and 47. But it seems to be pretty indisputed that the number of initially expelled members were 46 or 47, including 2 state committee members. That means even if the convention on April 23rd wasn't officially canceled, I'm not going to get into some sub-arguments here. We're just going to deal with the meta argument. The convention is invalid because it excluded from voting enough people who could have affected the results. There were more people expelled than attended that convention. So they definitely could have changed the results if they were able to vote, but they were not because they were unjustly expelled. When you are in breach of member rights in that way, and you deny member rights, voting rights, membership rights, that's a continuing breach, and actions taken under it when the people you expelled are of a sufficient number to have affected the results, those results are invalid. So clever argument, Steve, complete garbage. And it's the kind of technicality that is what we expect prosecutors to do. Or like these weird stories we hear of, people who got like the property tax notice wasn't sent to them, and then all of a sudden the government seizes their house, or they filed one thing wrong. How can you say all of this bad crap happened, but you want to know what? This brand new board that's just been through trauma, they forgot to cancel the Purgers Convention. Way to go with justice. But it's wrong. It's garbage. It's a bad argument, and you should have felt bad making it. The issue here is those 47 people could not vote at convention. They obviously would have made a difference. Therefore, all elections conducted at that convention, even if you want to argue that was a valid convention, which I don't argue, but I'm not even getting into that because there is some, whatever. I could concede for sake of argument only, invalid. The delegate elections on April 23rd were invalid. The changes to your governing documents you made were invalid. The election of the alleged new board, which isn't llama, are invalid. Y'all got some serious coping to do here, and you've kind of conceded it was invalid because everyone knows it was invalid. You can see the writing on the wall that no one is buying the stories. No one is buying what you're peddling. So, as a desperate move, you think rescinding or reinstating, whatever you want to call it, all of a sudden makes it better? No, it doesn't. Because you're not a legitimate board, because you weren't legitimately elected. A special convention was supposed to be called. It was a new board was elected. That new board called a convention validly on April 24th, at which everyone was welcome. And everyone could have showed up and voted, and there was no floor fee. Not that floor fees invalidate anything. I just find them personally gross. Particularly when you already paid dues to be a member. If you didn't pay dues to be a member, I wouldn't find it quite so bad. So, it's the board that was elected on the 24th. That is llama. And it is the delegates that were elected on the 24th that are the delegates. The minute you concede the expulsions were invalid, you've lost. Simple as that. And the fact that those expulsions were invalid is incontrovertible. Everyone is seeing it. You guys are finally coming to grips with it, but you're trying to hold on to the last shred of power. You're trying to bargain, well, we'll do this. You have no bargaining position. None. You can't violate people's rights with impunity for months. Then when you see you're not going to get away with it, go, oops, my bad. Okay, we're still going to stay in power. That's not how it works. And what have these members been demanding from day one? Before they went to the LNC, before this got to the JC, they wanted you to do what you just did right now, and you refused. It's too little, too late. You had the opportunity to do the right thing multiple times. And it wasn't until you knew you were going to lose that you did it, to say, oh, well, now we did the right thing. That train done left the station a long time ago. And the legitimate board cannot do, when it comes to your delegates, even if they wanted to say, hey, we'll split the difference with you, they can't, because they'll actually follow their bylaws and constitution. And the board has no authority to do that. You done messed yourself up. You done wrecked yourself rather than check yourself. So this is where we're at. I mean, this is the facts. What the LNC ends up doing usually has little resemblance to the facts. The LNC now needs to see that the Llama 1 board has pretty much admitted. They de facto admitted they were wrong, which means they are not the board. And the LNC's got some serious dealing with it to do. Now, I suspect, not proof, but I suspect just from everything I've read and seen and heard, that the Llama 1 board, for some reason, thinks that this act that they pretended to do, because they're not a real board, somehow mooted the appeal. No, it did absolutely. It's orthogonal to the appeal, has absolutely nothing to do with the appeal. The appeal is in the exact same position it was before you passed that motion. Why? Because A, everything I've just said. But more importantly, the appeal is not against you guys. It's against the LNC. The LNC are the only people who can moot the appeal by ending their constructive disaffiliation of the rightful affiliate, which is becoming more and more and more apparent with each day. The LNC, if it wants to, can end this. Now, I bet some of the usual suspects on the LNC will not understand this. They will not understand that this doesn't affect the appeal at all. I think there's going to be some people on the LNC who are going to go, well, they just reunited. No, they didn't. There's nothing for the delegates to decide, Tyler. The other board already conceded the issue. They done sold the farm. And the Credentials Committee already made the right decision. Now, that doesn't mean there can't be and won't be a challenge from the floor. I do not think the delegates want to waste their time with this when the other side has already conceded they were wrong. And you can't ask this side to give them anything, even if they wanted to be nice, without violating their own bylaws and constitution. You guys should have done this back in January, February. Because look, you ended up there anyway, and you ended up screwing people who came to your convention. And, you know, don't get into all this crap. And I think you're correct, Zach. Steve arrived at a conclusion and then looked for justification for it. And I think that demonstrated extraordinarily poor judgment on his case. In his case, not, you know what I'm saying? Let's just leave it with, I always want to add extra words, extraordinarily poor judgment. Now, we all do that at times. Having a chair that does that, not so good. But, you know, chairs make mistakes. I mean, it happens. And there's no rule that says chair candidates can't directly, you know, insert themselves. They can. You can decide whether you like that or not. I don't. But of course, I'm not going to pretend like I'm unbiased. Like didn't know already who I supported. And this is the thing that did it for me. No, I already was supporting Angela. I mean, we all already know that. So, I'm not going to make any pretenses here. I'm just pointing something out. To you, it might not matter. If I were undecided, I don't know if it'd be a deal breaker, but I'd be like, oh, no. But that's because I have a philosophy of chairing that is even stricter than what Roberts requires. It's definitely required of the LNC, though. The chair is supposed to guard their impartiality because it's a large committee, the whole other things. But I do it even when it's not required by Roberts because I don't think committees under you respect you unless you do that. They don't trust you. You have to have trust because there will be times when they're not going to be sure what you're telling them is correct. But if you've already built trust, it makes things a lot easier. That's part of the problem I had with the bylaws report. I felt like some of those titles were really misleading. And the thing that said it was eliminating postal mail when it wasn't, I felt like I was being deceived. They lost my trust. It's important. So the appeal stands exactly where it was, and it's going forward, except their case, the LNC's case, and as an interested party, because they are an interested party. So when I say it wasn't against them, perhaps that was inartfully worded. I mean, they are named as an interested party. Like we named everybody like we could possibly think of as an interested party because of the games the LNC played last time. Like the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire is named as an interested party because they signed the Region 8 agreement, not because we're appealing them. But that game that was played by the LNC last time, which I believe was absolutely in bad faith, we weren't going to have that happen again. So we put the kitchen sink in there. Shouldn't have to be that way. That's games the states play. When I say the states, I mean like the government. So appeal is going forward. Just like whatever. But now what the other side needs to do, if they want to end it, they think what they did today ended. No, it didn't. What you need to do is acknowledge the legitimacy of the Cordio board and turn over all of the party assets. That's what you need to do. Then it's over. Well, then it's over and everything but the LNC figuring out that's what happened. But I think if everyone in Massachusetts agrees that this is the affiliate, the LNC is just going to say, okay, you guys can end it. There's a route for you to honorably retreat with, that path is open and you've never been expelled, unlike the way you treated the other members. You have full membership in the legitimate party, as you always had. You will be able to vote at any convention. In fact, if you thought this board was bad, you could organize a special convention just like they did. I don't think it'd get you anywhere, but I bet you they'd call it. But you're under the bylaws as adopted by the legitimate board. Not that there have been many changes. When I say bylaws, I mean bylaws and constitution. But you want to know what one of the changes were? To euthanize DRO because it is utterly incapable of handling the needs of a political party when there's contention. And they've adopted Robert's Rules of Order. I think that might be the only change they made. And you're going to have to learn that. DRO is only in effect for your state committee meetings anyway, not any convention. So like that was a whole other mess. Don't know who wrote that amendment, but they wrote it badly. Parliamentarian definitely was not involved. So there's a route, the other side, for you to honorably retreat and heal your party. The choice is yours. Now, whatever olive branches the legitimate party wants to give you is entirely up to them, has nothing to do with the appeal or me as a parliamentarian. You could ask, and they could say yes or no, but you're in no position right now to demand a thing. You did wrong. You got caught. Now you got to face it. And I do not believe, because I know these guys, though it's human nature to be this way, I do not believe they will give in to this temptation, which is a very human temptation, to be punitive. I think they want peace and a clean slate. The ball is in your court. It's still in your court. The ball didn't all of a sudden get shoved over to the other court because you passed this motion to save your bacon. It didn't save your bacon. It made it extra crispy. I am sure the JC, the LNC, and this party would love for this to be over by Reno. Llama One board, now chaired by Don Graham, who's a nice guy. I know him. I say chaired by, allegedly. I'm using, they think it is. It's not. It's not a real board. It's fake. You could say you're, again, the Queen of England. I don't care. The ball is in your court now. I know you, Don. I know you voted at the fake convention, but you thought it might be legitimate to bring back in all these members. Not that it would have made it legitimate because they weren't allowed to in on that vote, but what I'm saying is I think your heart is in the right place. And sometimes being a good leader means you got to tell the people who are looking to you to lead them the hard truth, bite the bullet, and take your licks. This is that time. I'm asking you, as a good man, to just do this for the sake of the party. Not just Massachusetts, but the entire party. Be an example for Reno. The LNC had a chance to be an example for Reno with the really, really reasonable compromise and concessions I offered them in order for them to reverse what they did to me. And they refused. But everyone knows, and I can look myself in the mirror and say I did everything I could. I want you, Don, to be able to look yourself in the mirror and say the same thing. Encourage your people to do the right thing. You want to know what this is reminding me of? Game of Thrones. Remember when Jon Snow was talking to Mance Rayder? And he was like, do the right thing for your people. Don't be so proud. He was right. Do the right thing for your people. That would be a show of strength and character. Please, you can end it. You can end it tomorrow. And if you did, then the ball's in the LNC's court. But for all intents and purposes, everyone's agreed who the affiliate is. The LNC would need to recognize that. But if you handed over the assets and recognized Cordio as chair, and they could just change it on the website, actually, I don't think the LNC would need to do anything. I'd have to think about that a little bit. I think they might, but maybe they don't. And the appeal could just be over. Anyone who hasn't read the appeal, I really suggest you do, because I could be wrong. Somebody could have had a vision. Definitely not a boy. I've covered this so many times, not going over it again. If they had a right to do so, then it's not out of order. You contradicted yourself. You might disagree with their decision, to how they exercise their rights, but by definition, exercising a right is not out of order. It's an abuse of authority. People get to exercise their rights in ways you don't like. But this is all dealt with in the appeal. Anyone who has not read the appeal, it really dealt with in detail in the appeal. And the short answer, though, to some people wondering, why were they going to call a special convention 2 months before a convention was already scheduled? Because the board, the state committee, I say board, it's different terminology here in Colorado, because they just passed a draconian code of conduct that they believed the members, less than half who were Mises, would be used to conduct purges before the convention. And they were proven exactly right, because the board already started purging people for word violence. They purged this one lady and said, when she said, I am going to troll you on some kind of social media platform, that was literal aggression, worthy of expulsion. So they saw it coming. They were not going to risk people not being able to vote at convention. So they did the petition. The petition was a recall election. If other members who showed up were happy with the current board, they could have just reelected them all or confirmed them all. The fact that the very petition itself caused a mass expulsion shows their instinct was right. They were right. They should have called that special convention earlier, but they were trying to talk the board. This is really a Kafka trap when people keep questioning. Not saying you're doing it. I don't know you. Definitely not a Fed boy. That is what a Fed boy would say. That is a classic Kafka trap, isn't it? Are you a Fed boy? No? That's exactly what a Fed boy would say. But one thing I'm finding in this party, we are a massive Kafka trap, because if you jump the gun, well, I don't even want to say jump the gun. If you file your thing early, people will yell at you and demonize you and say, why didn't you try to work it out first? Then when you spend time trying to work it out, and when it becomes obvious it's not, you then do your thing. Everyone goes, why didn't you do your thing earlier? It's a classic damned if you do and damned if you don't. I've seen this happen now like 4 or 5 times. They were desperately trying to work this out with the board to avoid a special convention. People ask why we didn't immediately file an appeal for constructive disaffiliation. I explain this in the appeal, but it's the same reason. It's a Kafka trap. Because we felt there was still hope to work it out with the LNC. And it wasn't until it became obvious that it was futile. It became obvious it was futile with that board once they passed that code of conduct this over the objections of so many people in their party. And the comments of the state committee on social media made it clear they were going to use it to silence criticism, just like the LNC did to me. They were following in the LNC's footsteps. Same thing here. People would have said, why did you jump the gun on constructive disaffiliation? There was still a chance to work it out. When we tried to work it out until we beat, we sucked that teat dry. Then we were like, why didn't you file this sooner? Damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I will always side on the keep trying to negotiate until it's futile, obviously futile to everybody. That's just my ethics. But I figured out no matter what you do, someone's going to demonize you for it or blame you for it. You want to know who you have to be able to justify your actions to? This is who you need to justify your actions to. When you go like this at night, hey, that's who you need to be able to look in the eye, yourself. So this is where we're at. But I want to point out an irony here. I wonder if you've seen it yet. So you have the state committee, allegedly, the pretend one, tonight. It is the 11th earlier today. It's now after the 11th, most places. It's after the 11th here, too. But the decision was made on the 11th Eastern Coast time because it's Massachusetts. They had a convention, allegedly, on the 23rd that they're insisting was valid. You're welcome. And let me offer you an apology. I think I was a little short with you when you first asked the question. And I apologize. I'm really tired, under a lot of stress. And you might have heard me explain, I've got some personal medical things going on that, when you don't know yet what's going on with your body, it worries you. So I'm a little grumpy. And sometimes it makes me snappy. And I apologize because I think I was a little snappy and you didn't deserve that. I'm sorry. But here's the irony that it makes me laugh in a way. It makes it because the hypocrisy. I don't know if you've seen it yet. You probably haven't because I'm living with the facts of this. But as I start laying it out, you're going to go, oh, that's not a good look. So you have a convention that allegedly happened on the 23rd that the Llama One board has been defending ever since that day. And when people questioned about the expelled members, they said, you know what? Out of our hands. We put the question to the delegates at our convention, and they voted they didn't want them back. A convention is superior to the board. Let's pretend all of that was real. What justification do you have as a state committee to override the will of your delegates at your absolutely legitimate convention? Do you understand? That is a really shitty thing to do. If you really believe that was a legitimate convention, you just said, screw you, what you voted. Are y'all understanding the line here? You can't have it both ways. If that was a legitimate convention, unless you're conceding now it wasn't, because it wasn't. You just flagrantly went over the heads of your convention. Within the space of 23rd, is there 30 days in April? Yeah, I think so. Of the 11th. So 18 days. Not even 3 weeks, not even 3 weeks later. You just willy-nilly overturned the will of your delegates and convention? Okay. Weird flex, but okay. There's just, it's over the other side. The quicker you realize that, the quicker everyone could get this out of their lives and move on. I don't live there, as you know, but I'm a registered parliamentarian, as you know, and I was retained by one of the expelled members. So for all the yelling that this is interference by a non-Massachusetts member, it's no different than someone hiring an attorney. I have a client. That's not interference. And it's really, really gross to paint it that way. Not that I don't think other people in other states have a right to an opinion, but I'm just saying, in my particular case, I'm a hired professional. Now, I am giving my services pro bono. That's because I don't charge libertarians. Particularly a case like this, when it was so clearly, I mean, there was no question in my mind, just like Delaware. And I help them too, for free, because I don't charge libertarians. Now, it wasn't a parliamentary issue that went on in New Hampshire. So that's different. I helped them, but that was different. And here's the funny thing in LNC, I wouldn't have been able to do any of this but for you removing me. So if you're finding my volunteering of my skills annoying, I have something for you to look at. So I'm grateful that I was able to make lemonade out of the lemons. Grateful for that. You know, sometimes I would have, you know what? There was a candidate question and answer tonight that I was at. And Steve Nikala, a lot of people talked about passion for the party. I'm going to do a whole show on this because I was like mind blown, you know. And he pointed out that the word passion means has its roots in pain. That's why I know a lot of people don't know that today. That's why it's called the Passion of the Christ. So it's a mixture of love and devotion and pain. And the idea is you can't be passionate about something unless you actually hurt for it. It's like the Apostle Paul, who had passion for the church. And he said, even now I'm being poured out as a drink offering. That imagery just, to me, is just so powerful. But when Steve said that, I was like mind blown. Yeah, I am passionate. And I have hurt. Makes me feel better about it, though, a little bit when you connect those two. So that's where we're at. The other side basically has waved the white flag without admitting that's what they did. Thought that was going to get them delegate seats. Like that just guaranteed you acknowledged. Like you've given up the fight. You acknowledged what you did was wrong. So kind of in a satirical way, I made a Facebook post about this for people to just understand. I wanted to put it in really simple terms. And again, just understand this was done like in a style of humor I have that's like, so let me see if I understand this correctly. That's the type of humor I have. Let me find the post. Okay. I said, so let me see if I understand. 1, expel members who would vote against you. 2, have a convention and get elected and elect national delegates that you want, and those expelled members cannot vote at that convention. 3, now reinstate those members. 4, pretend like everything's okay and you are now heroes. When you put it bluntly like that, you see how silly it is. You can dress it up all you want. I call that perfuming the hog. I don't care how much perfume you put on it, it's still a hog. And I gave the whole summary that I gave here. And then I said, this is starting to look like bad Orwellian fanfic. Or the desperate gasps of purgers realizing they're losing and still trying to retain some kind of power, or still trying to hold power, I think is the way I worded it there. Yes, Keith, and it's the legitimate one. They voted on that last week. Steve Dasbach interfered. Interfered's the wrong word, because I mean, he has every right to write the credentials committee. That's the wrong word. It's the LNC that I would use that with. I need to take that back. He interjected. Whether people think that's appropriate or not is up to them. There's definitely no rule. The credentials committee could hear from anyone they want to. He interjected himself to advocate for the purgers. But as of this moment right now, the correct delegates are set. Could the credentials committee change their mind? We've got 2 weeks to convention. They've got big problems right now with the CRM. That's not their fault. People should stop now. It's over. Oh, I don't have that button here, Fed boy. People should stop now. It's over. And let them do their job. They've got other things to worry about. It's over. There's a time when you just got to say, it's over. And then do the best you can for your people. That time is now. Otherwise, here's a choice that's before the illegitimate alleged state committee. You can take care of this yourself and make these decisions yourself, or very soon, someone's going to make these decisions for you. I'd rather me walk up my head high and do the right thing myself. Because this is where these decisions are going to be made for you. It's inevitable because there's a JC appeal. Now, you might think you're going to win it. You're not now. I mean, listen, I've been very wrong before in predicting JC appeals. So, You could legitimately say, well, your prediction record hasn't been exactly great. I believe I should have won my case, and I obviously didn't. I did win because I helped. It's actually Delaware that won, but I helped. I like to bask in it a little bit. Did win Delaware. Lost the last one here. Should have won it, though. And it's obvious from reading the opinions that we should have won it. It was an incoherent argument with when you paired it with Delaware. We can't have a justice body that gives two contradictory opinions within the span of 2 months. Can you imagine if the Supreme Court did that? You can't have a society, be it like wider society, or if you don't know, groups like ours that are governed by rules and stuff, they're called societies in Robert's rules. You can't have a society like that. And if that kept happening, we would crumble. But I think that was an anomaly. And you want to leave this in the hands of the JC. I think they're going to correct it. I could be wrong. But here's the thing. There's going to be a new JC next term. Who knows who that will be? Maybe some people haven't realized there's JC elections this term. I know they were just elected last convention. That's because Nick messed up. There's a whole thing with that. JC gets elected on non-presidential years. It's very clear in the bylaws. So a new JC is getting elected. I don't know if any of the current members are running. Maybe it'll be the exact same people. Maybe it'll be some of the same people. That's usually how it is. Some of the same, some of the no. You have no idea what that JC is going to do. But you do know, you should by now, a good idea what a makeup this convention is going to look like. People have seen the writing on the wall. And I do think there are dirty tricks coming. And, well, let me put it to you this way. Those of you who are inclined to support or be involved in dirty tricks, I want you to consider something. I may know more about what's going on than you think I do. Just think about it. That's all I'm saying. Not on my watch. This will be a fair convention. There will be things at this convention, be they platform, bylaws, an election. There will be things at this convention that I will lose fair and square, but it's going to be fair. It's going to be fair. Whether or not you like the statistics of the delegates who show up. Too bad. So sad. Suck it up, Buttercup. I can't tell you how many times I've been told that. But all of a sudden, when the shoe's on the other foot, woo! I've sucked it up, Buttercup, many times. At state conventions and at national. And this past year with what happened to me. After my final appeal was over, it was done. What could I do? Could I start storming in? Could I try to hack into the LNC emails? No, I could do what I wanted on my own, the best I could, my duties to the members. But, I gave it my best shot. I don't agree with their decision, but it's our process. At least the JC, I don't think they cheated. I disagree with them, but they didn't cheat. The LNC cheated. Well, cheat kind of means against the rules. Let's put it this way. They behaved in a very morally suspect manner by sneaking in David Sexton. If you're fine with not winning fair and square, with no question or cloud over it, I never want to win that way. Never. But anyway, this will be a fair convention. Plotters, you don't know what I know. And what I don't yet know, don't be so sure I won't know. What people like to slander me, my paranoid fear-mongering has about an 80% accuracy rate. There's so many things I said were coming. They did. Now, I don't always tell you guys all of them. You want to know who I tell is Wayne. And he ends up being astounded. And it's like, how did you? It's like, unfortunately, I've got a really good instinct for this stuff and can get in the mind of bad actors. That makes me want to throw up. I don't like thinking like that. I'm good at predicting it. I'm good at anticipating. There's been times I haven't. And the times that I haven't have been because I wasn't on guard. If I was on guard at the LNC meeting in September, I would not have been removed because I would have been a Machiavellian and not told them that I knew Stephen Nikala was leaving. Because I know Stephen's alternate already told him he would not be there. And I did not think that David Sexton lacked integrity in that manner. I was wrong. My guard was down. But if my guard were up, I wouldn't have told them shit. I would have waited right until the moment when I was sure I had all of my support in the room, moved that motion myself right then. If I could, I might need it to suspend the rules, whatever. No, I actually believed I would be treated fairly. I was stupid. But my guard is up now. And when my guard's up, you may pull something over on me. Like, I'll tell you, I didn't anticipate this move tonight coming. I did not anticipate this. I'll tell you that. Yes, surprised me. That's unusual. I've anticipated a lot, though. And my speculations, and I always tell you when they are about 20% wrong. So, yeah, that was a dirtbag move by David Sexton. And there's no way he feels good about it when he thinks about it. And I hope he thinks about it all the time. But that's it for tonight. This is where we're at. I encourage Don to complete the surrender gracefully. I encourage the expelled 47 to be gracious in accepting the surrender and move on. Fight another day against the state instead of against each other. Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing? I can tell you, because of all of this, you know how many people have written me asking me for help for things? You know, they have a parliamentary question, or where can I find this, or where can I find that? And I've had to say to them, and it breaks my heart, every single moment of my mental energy right now has to be for Massachusetts. If you've watched that Seinfeld episode where Elaine was in the bathroom and there was no toilet paper and Jerry's girlfriend was in the other stall, but she didn't know that was Jerry's girlfriend. And she's like, can you spare, some toilet paper? And the girl's like, no. And Elaine's like, not even a square. And the girl's like, no, there's not a square to spare. I love Seinfeld. Well, right now, when people write me, I've had to turn away so many people because I have not a square to spare. Let's use these resources better, please. Let me help people with parliamentary things that will help them fight the state you guys get back together the right way so you can fight the state, let's go to Reno and elect an effective LNC that won't be a circular firing squad so we can fight the state. Now I'm going to be talking more about that bylaw that allows the LNC to expel members. If that sentence doesn't strike terror into you, you didn't listen. Now, I learned more about it. I learned about where it came from. And I'm going to give a lot of details on that because where it came from was a very good intention. We'll get more into that. But the genesis of it came from a very good place. It's just the wrong solution. And it can be weaponized by bad actors. Very often, things that get weaponized by bad actors started out with the best of intentions. So I want to make that clear. I didn't know where this originally came from. Now that once it's out of the hands of the original source, whose intentions I believe were pure, and it's in the hands of other people that I have very good reason to be a little cautious around, that's where the problem comes in. A lot of these people, that's not even the right word. Let me use some of these people who are on the bylaws committee agreed with what Massachusetts did, agreed with what Joe Bishop Henchman did in New Hampshire, and agreed with what Delaware did because they hate a certain caucus. Everyone sees the writing on the wall that there's a very high chance, it's not certainty, not at all. But if you are a betting person, there's a very high chance that that particular caucus they don't like is going to have more than the majority of the LNC. They're not going to have the entire LNC. I actually would think that'd be a bad thing. I think you need some diversity at least. And I can tell you, if there was a minority non-Mises voice and I were elected, and for some reason, not that this is what happened, this is objection speculative, but if for some reason, like the power got to some of them, they're like, we don't like what this person is saying. We're going to try to remove them. Guess who would be voting no? Because you don't gang up on political minorities and like that were duly elected. But knowing that there are people in the bylaws committee who despise the Mises Caucus, and knowing that bylaws, okay, let me step back a step. We're going to get into this a lot of detail. Why would, and this proposal passed 6-0. There were no votes. Do you think people who despise the Mises Caucus would let the first LNC to have that power be a Mises-dominated LNC? They would not. So they must believe that there's not going to be a Mises-dominated LNC and that they will have it. But if you just look at the facts, it seems pretty obvious. So you want to know what that points to me? There's a plan that makes these folks confident that they're going to ensure they're not going to take a chance. You would never, if you hated the Mises Caucus the way some people do, you would never, ever take a chance to make the first LNC to have that power be a Mises-dominated LNC, even though I do not think they would ever exercise it. They think the absolute worst. They think the Mises caucus wants to let the Republican Party come in and take over. So why wouldn't they? Let's pretend, the Mises caucus is this bunch of Republican Nazis they think it is. Why would they give such a people the power to throw out all the real libertarians? It's like, lawyers don't usually, the O.J. Simpson one, they screwed up, but the rule of law based, don't ever ask a question you don't already know the answer to. You never on a bylaws committee vote for something that you think is going to give power to literal Nazis. So this is how I know there's a plan. It's obvious because they just never would vote for this. Do you not think, I'm not saying I wouldn't vote for this because I don't believe in expulsions. You've got to be like, it's got to be really, really, really bad. And there'll be an example of someone that the convention could expel if they wanted to. And it's a pretty clear case. That'll be in another show. But you don't think if this is a Mises-dominated LNC that we will not be inundated? Absolutely inundated with requests to expel Nick Sarwark. Just keep going. It would never pass. I wouldn't vote for that because that monster will turn around and bite you. But you don't think every single day we will get requests like that? You're out of your mind. It doesn't mean the LNC will take it up, but you don't think we will be flooded with requests like that? That there will people who automatically go, yay, I have a weapon now. You're not thinking. The convention already has the power to expel people, and that's where it belongs, with the convention, not with the LNC. We've already seen how they abuse their power. Now, we might think we'll have a better LNC this time. What about 2 LNCs from now? Not a good idea. And the one particular person that's in mind that this was made for can be expelled at convention without a bylaws change, if that's what the delegates want to do. You don't screw with the bylaws with this. You will not like the monster that it creates. And God, I'll be saying this again in another show, but this is so important. I know people go, yeah, but the threshold is really high. You're right, it is. But you want to know what? Do you remember how the income tax was sold to the American people? This is only on the really, really rich. You don't have to worry about it. You don't think power corrupts in the LP too? You don't think that once people get a taste for blood, that they won't maybe lower the threshold because they think they could get even on some enemies? That's human nature. Once you give the LNC this power, it ain't going away. And that threshold can be amended. Like I said to some people who are considering potentially doing some things that might be against the rules in regions, I could be wrong. Do you feel lucky? I don't feel that lucky. Maybe it's because I've been at the pointy end of that stick, and the 47 people in Massachusetts have. Expulsions primarily belong at the state level, if at all. We don't expel in Colorado. Well, we can't for a lot of reasons because our membership is defined by registration. You can't tell someone they can't register. But in states that can, because it's dues-based, full due process. And I believe in a sunset clause on expulsions, unless it's for like, they're convicted of murder, something like that, equally heinous. But if it's because, James Weeks, he stripped on stage, do I think he should have been expelled from his state party for that? Yeah, that was pretty bad. I know people disagree with me there. It was fraudulent is what the problem is. People did not sign up to see that. But would I have agreed if that expulsion was permanent? No. And it wasn't. I think it was for 2 years. You need to give people a path to redemption, particularly when what they did wasn't like actual violence. Or, have actual real victims, not your feelings. Your feelings aren't victims. Sorry. Not sorry. So I do not want the National Party between conventions to have the power to expel. That power belongs to the state parties. And if we are going to have it between conventions and needs to be by petition of the delegates, not the LNC, this power should not be centralized. I do not believe in centralization. I do believe in decentralization. I believe in taking power away from the LNC, not giving it more. And if people really think we need this power, then find a way to give it to the delegates between conventions, not the LNC. I don't care how it's amended, though if it looked like it would pass, I certainly would vote for amendments that make it less terrible. But I will never vote for the LNC to have expulsion power, ever. Because the first victim of it, I want to be able to look them in the face and say, I had no hand in this. Give that power to the delegates. It's spread out amongst the country. They've got to face their peer groups. They're not drunk with power. And full due process, not a mere whim. I don't think anything I said here is unreasonable. And libertarians of all people should know you don't concentrate power at the top. We're not a top-down party. And the National Party just shouldn't be that important anyway. Because here's the thing. Someone could be expelled from National Party membership, and if they live in Colorado, they're still a Colorado member. It's much more powerful if the state, if it can, expel somebody. Because that's their neighbors, that's their peers. But national, we shouldn't be that important. Like, I want us to decrease so that the states might increase. You guys might understand that's another biblical reference. I love my biblical references, don't I? Anyway, that was a bit of a rant. That was beyond Massachusetts, but it's related to Massachusetts because that power was given probably with really, really good intentions, and it probably hadn't been abused for years. But when it did get abused, woo! Like, hold my beer, Bessie. It came from a good place. Let's find another way. If it must be done, let's find another way. But the one guy in question here, it can already be done. You don't need a bylaw for that. And due process has already been given on that. When somebody's been through criminal trial and appeal. The question, it gets much more dicier when you're trying to expel somebody who's merely accused of something and has not had due process. I suppose the convention probably could just vote. I don't know. I'd have to look this up. I'm talking a little bit out of ignorance here because not a big purger. They probably could just do it at convention and have the trial and everything right then. I'm guessing. But in this case, the dude's already, there's no question. And in jail, like for a long time. I think this convention could safely take care of this without endangering the rest of the party. Well, Chuck, I suppose that would then go to the JC, which you wouldn't be on. And are you rerunning? It can. Roberts gives a society the power to do that. LNC can't. Okay, so you won't have to worry about it. I mean, you'll worry about it, obviously, as a member who loves this party. I hear you, Lord have mercy. Where are we going? Where are we taking a trip to? Oh, people are going to talk now, Chuck. I'm glad you're back because I was a little harsh on you past couple streams. But I think you're a professional who doesn't take those things personally. But you're also a human. So, it took me a week, to get over not taking your bad JC decision in my case personally. So I wouldn't blame you if you held a grudge against me for a little while. It's only human. Yeah. But let me concede something to you, Chuck. I'm going to talk to some PRPs about that. I know you had that designation, but you didn't renew. That doesn't mean the knowledge got sucked out of your brain just because you didn't pay some fees. But I think it can be done without a bylaws change by the convention. And if not, let's make a bylaws change to allow the convention to do it with a super high threshold. I don't know if I'd vote for that, but I wouldn't go pyrotechnically batshit over it. Because I am going pyrotechnically batshit over it. I did not realize, though, that this was initially proposed, even though I don't know what the bylaws committee's reasons were, but the person and the resolution from a state party was because of, well, we could say everyone knows the name of Nathan Larson, who's a very, very bad man. Anyone, there's no question about it. So I can understand that. But the next person will be used on the LNC will not be a Nathan Larson. Or maybe the next one will be a Nathan Larson. But the next one will be a little less. And before you know it, it could be you. It could be me. It could be Nick Sarwark. It could be anybody. It could be Daryl Perry. It's a lot of people who a lot of people would love to get rid of. Yeah, so Chuck's given some history of bylaws committee reasoning, but I had the person who suggested, because of Nathan Larson, wanted me to let my audience know that. So they had that information. And I believe in information. I'll give you all the relevant information. It's not going to pass. It's not. I'm the poster child, like Chuck. With the LNC, Obi-Wan Kenobi, strike me down and I will become 10 times more powerful than before. anything that remotely touches upon discipline, I'm the flashpoint. And I am not going to support this. But I would consider, I'm not saying I would, I'd have to see it. And can't minority reports be submitted? It's really weird. Like, I don't understand how bylaws minority reports get heard. There's no provision for it in the rules. Or am I missing that, Chuck? Like platform, it gives a process. I disagree. It's bad now and it will get worse. But would you consider a minority report giving that power to the convention? I'd have to see the wording. I certainly would support it over this. Whether I would ultimately vote for it is another thing I'd have to deeply consider. And perhaps, well, this one, Chuck, it's going to inflame people so bad. Just asking you to consider it. It would solve the issues that the members brought up that I do not want to discount. Now, they do have to wait to convention, but state parties can take care of it in the meantime. And then you take care of it at convention. And if it's really important to be between conventions, then we already use a petition of delegates for a member appeal to the JC. We could use a petition for this. Like, maybe have the LNC hear it upon petition of a high number of delegates. That would be better. I'm not saying I would still yet support, but I would certainly support over the language as it exists now. Right now, it is not going to pass. I would bet, I've been wrong though, multiple times. Because too many people in the delegate group have been targeted unjustly before. And they're very sensitive to that. Okay. I tried. So to the person, because I don't really like mentioning members' names, they're not public figures. I tried. I would like you to pass my suggestion along, though, Chuck. But you don't have to. I could always move a substitute from the floor. I'd rather it come from the committee, but that's okay. I want to remove power from the LNC. I don't have language. That's my problem, Chuck, and I don't know if I'll be able to come up with some. I'll try. I will. I've got a health thing going on right now that Massachusetts and my health is really all I can handle right now, but I'll try. All right, guys. It's good to see you, Chuck. It was good to see everyone else. I always enjoy our conversations. Most likely, unless there's breaking news, you will not see me at all tomorrow. I've got some personal obligations to take care of. Though, of course, if something happens in Massachusetts, I have a professional duty. And one thing you guys know about me, I'm deontologist, duty-based, like I will do my duty. Yeah, and I'm also immature enough to laugh at the word duty. She said duty. Settle down, Beavis. All right, that's it for tonight. You probably will not see me tomorrow unless there's Massachusetts issues, because that's really all I'm doing right now. though I think there's a meeting I'm supposed to be at tomorrow. If I have obligated myself to a meeting, I've got some dry lips. If you're wondering why I keep going like that, like my lips, Colorado is really dry for this. If you don't know it, this is actually considered semi-arid. Like, I don't know why people don't think like how freaking dry it is here. And it dries out your nose and your lips. It's terrible. And I think our household humidifier or something is off because my lips are cracking. All right, everyone. You have a good night. And yeah, that's it. I could talk forever because I enjoy you so much as a group. Oh, before we go, look what came in. I got my little tote bag for convention. You can still get one. You'll have to pay rush shipping now, though. tinyurl.com/pink flame merch. Scroll to the end. You can find your good Liberty Unmasked thing if you don't want to walk around looking like you're at a community theater, which I know I certainly don't. Much love.